What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. Today's video we're going to be doing something I haven't done before, and that is we're going to be making a 3-color Damascus. Now here I got 1084 and 1520, which are the usual components to Damascus that we use here, and I'm going to be slipping in some ADCRV2. Now I don't remember if ADCRV2 is darker or lighter than 1084, but it should give us like a dark black, then like a grayish black, then we're gonna have our clear silver 15 and 20. And I'm gonna be making multiple knives this go around, and I'm gonna be trying out different Damascus patterns such as raindrop, ladder, or whatever comes to mind. Maybe I'll do a twist as well. I'm gonna be building 2 billets because this is a lot of steel, and it's going to be a pretty big billet if I just do one, and my press is going to struggle with that. So we're going to build up 2 billets, not 3. We'll be building up 2 billets. Alright guys, so our first forge weld is 12 layers. We're going to do 12 layers, cut it into 3, get it up to 36, cut it into 3, and then get it up to over 100 layers. That way we have a pretty nice pattern that we can start our base from. In this video, I'm just going to be doing a random Damascus, and in future videos we'll be using the rest of the steel so that we can make some dies, so that we can make different kinds of Damascus. And I'm not sure how I'm going to make them, but that is a problem for future me to solve. Here we're just working out our billet, and I'm trying to get it to be right around 10 inches, give or take. That way we can cut it into 3 and have a sizable billet, preferably 12, but it ends up being a little bit less if I'm not mistaken. And even though both billets are the same size originally, I end up forging one a little bit longer than the other. So with this weld, we're moving to 36 layers overall, 2 36 layer billets. And remember, this is a 3-color Damascus, and that is because of the introduction of the third steel, which is the ADCRV2. And I have seen this in the past. Actually, my brother did this once, and we looked at it, and it did have a little bit of a variety in color, though you could differentiate them, but from a distance you couldn't really tell which color was which. You had to look very, very closely, and I figured it'd be fun to try it for myself.
By this point, the billet had gotten manageable enough to where I figured I could just weld them all together instead of doing separate billets. So here we're gonna have 216 layer billet versus the 100 and something layer billet that I was originally gonna have. And so we ended up having more layers than I originally wanted, but the higher the layer count, the tighter the pattern and the better it'll come out whenever we do a raindrop or a ladder. Though for the original random Damascus, it is going to be a little bit tighter than I had originally wanted, but it will look good regardless of how many layers we use, as long as we don't go crazy and go over like 300 or 500 layers.
Alright guys, so I've taken the billet and I've cut it into 4 equal pieces. I'm going to be working with one of them today, and we're going to be making a random Damascus knife. And then I'm going to take the other ones. They're different sizes because the forging wasn't quite even. I ran out of time the other day, but I was like, whatever, I'll just cut it anyways. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these guys, forge random, and I'm going to be working on these guys in separate videos, and I'm going to be making special dies for ladder pattern, raindrop, and whatever else comes to mind. I think I'm going to do just the twist Damascus on this one because I want to see what the pattern looks like with the triple Damascus that I'm working on, and see if adding that extra steel gives it more depth or if it just is whatever. So first things first, we're going to go on ahead and forge this into a knife. And also, I've been doing a lot of cleaning and trying to reorganize my space. I'm going to be adding some more tools. And to be adding more tools, I need to kind of get rid of a lot of stuff. So I've added that guy and a small compressor so that I could do some stainless. And as well as I'm going to be doing some modifications to the press here in the near future. And that'll probably be a video in and of itself whenever I got a chance. There's a lot of stuff that I have to fix on this guy. I made it myself and I kind of just winged it. And this is already version 3 because I kind of have to fix it every 2 years. Nonetheless, you know, I have to make it a little bit better. I think I've been having issues with it stalling out because the motor is so close to where all the heat is. It causes it to overheat a lot faster. So I'm definitely going to be moving all that a little bit separate. And then I'll probably make some shelves or something underneath to hold all my dies. And I'm not sure. I'm going to figure that out. As well as I want to build a rolling machine, like to roll the Damascus. And the reason why I want to build a rolling machine is because a lot of the Damascus that I'm working on, especially the copper ones, they're forging them works well, but it would work better if I could roll them. So I'm going to be working on building a rolling machine that I can add to the tools I have here, as well as kind of modifying it to be able to use it as a twisting machine as well. That way I can get a 2-for-1. But that will be in the near future. I got to order all the parts and then I can build it. And I'm going to get a friend of mine to help me build it. So he's a way better welder than I am. I kind of just weld peanuts. Nonetheless, that's going to be the plan for the near future. So videos might not be coming out as regular. I'm going to try to keep it as regular as possible, but sometimes it might be every 2 weeks instead of every week. But I'm going to try to stay weekly. With that said, let's go on ahead and start forging out our first little block of triple Damascus.
So earlier I was talking about the layer count and that it would look a lot tighter and a lot less distinguishable if we went over 300 or say 500 layers. And that brought some to my mind, and let me know in the comments what you think about this. Should I do like 1,000 layer or a 10,000 layer project and see what it looks like? That came to mind while I was doing this voiceover that I'm doing right now, that it would be pretty cool to see. I don't think I've ever done 1,000 layer knife or even a 10,000 layer knife or whatever. I've never gone that high, so that might be interesting, though that would be a lot of material loss, so I don't even know if it's something I want to do because of the cost. But if you guys want me to do it, I'll definitely do it, and I'll make something cool out of it. And maybe I'll do a parts project. I'll make like a Bowie or something. I've been wanting to make a Bowie for a while. I just don't really have the time to do on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule. Also, I have another project in mind. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. I might just do a video explaining it later. But I think it would be pretty cool to do a very long build, making multiple knives and multiple different mosaics and then putting it together to make one knife. It's a thought I've had here over the last probably probably like a year and a half. I've been wanting to do that by mixing multiple different Damascus and doing a plug weld type knife at the very end. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in, because it is a pretty big undertaking. Obviously, I'll be making a knife per the mosaic that I make, and then I'll be saving a little chunk for the final knife. And I have a rough idea of a theme that I want for it, so let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would be interested in watching. I don't really do part series on this channel, but I think that would be the way to go to be able to get more of these cool builds that I have in mind made. Because if I don't do a large series on it, there's just no feasible way I can make the time for it. Back to the build, I'm just doing a standard chef's knife hidden tang, and I'm leaving the bolster area a little bit thicker, and that is because I have a piece of wood I've been wanting to use for a while, and that wood I messed up on, and I made the hole slightly bigger than I needed, and so I have never really made a knife that I could use that with. So I figured here I'm gonna do a brute de forge knife so I can make the bolster a little bit bigger than usual, and it should work out very nicely. It is a very pretty piece of wood, and it would be a shame not to be able to use it. Another thing, since I am doing a brute de forge build, I'm having to forge in a taper, a distal taper, towards the tip of the knife, and I'm having to forge in the bevels more than I normally would, which is a lot of fun because I don't really do this much, especially since I've been doing a lot of copper knives as of late, and those don't require a lot of forging because you just can't. They'll delaminate and split apart. So it was very fun to finally get to, you know, forge steel and play around with it more, though I did have a lot of trouble with keeping the bolster and everything else in line. One thing I did learn in this process is that next time I do something like this, I need to make the bolster more of an octagonal or round shape versus the square shape that I made here, because it kind of limited me on how I could do my hidden tang knife and the shape overall. Overall, the shape is very rough, but it's definitely what I was going for, so I'm very happy about that, and I have minimal grinding to do on it. One thing that I did here, and I see people do this, but I also see people not do this, is towards the right underneath the bolster, I kind of curve it inward. I see a lot of people, they will take the knife to the vise and then kind of forge in a finger choil, and instead of the way it's done here where it kind of just swoops forward. And I don't have a vise where I can really properly do that, so I kind of just stick with what I can use. So it is a little bit harder, but here the part I'm grinding in is what I'm talking about. Regardless, it still feels pretty good in the hand, and whenever I hold it pinch grip, I'm holding it right above where the heel is. But I don't really know if some people like that or not. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer a ground in kind of like a notch versus it curving forward? Some people are very particular about that part of the knife versus, you know, how they hold it and stuff. I don't know. Both ways works for me, but let me know what you think.
Alright guys, so I don't do this often. I normally wait until after I heat treat, but before I heat treat, I'm gonna fit this piece of wood up to here and drill my handle. That way I can have that all prepped up. And then I'm gonna heat treat because it is currently Friday night and I have some important stuff to do tomorrow. So I'm gonna try to finish this guy so I can edit it and have it done in time for Sunday the 3rd. But if you don't see this Sunday the 3rd, that means I did not make deadline. And that's cool too. I don't really mind, but I'd rather stay consistent as best as possible. So this is an old piece that I messed up and I overground. And so this will fit perfectly on this guy because we got pretty meaty bolster right there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on ahead and fit it up. This knife is gonna be a brute to forge. That's why I forged it pretty much to shape, and I also forged a bit of distal taper on it to instead of grinding one in. And so I'm just gonna grind whatever I need to grind off of it. So the bolster is pretty much gonna stay the same. That's the only reason why I'm gonna do the fit up ahead of time, because I'm essentially done touching this unless it is to clean up these edges. So I'm gonna go ahead and fit this guy up. Fortunately, it's already been partially worked on, so I'm just gonna clean it up and we're gonna go on ahead and do a burn through to see if we can just shove it in there.
So this is the piece I was talking about earlier. I kinda did not set my drill correctly for the depth, and I ended up over drilling the hole whenever I was doing the relief on the back, so I figured I'd use it here. One method I find myself using more and more often these days is to get the hole about 80% of the way there and just burn through the rest, and you know, touch it up as needed with files and stuff. But I found that this works pretty well for me because it's really hard to get a really tight fit, because it's so easy to over grind or over file, which, believe it or not, even though these files are small, they're still pretty aggressive. So it's very easy for me to overdo it. So this helps me get a pretty good fit. It's not always the best, but I am getting better with it the more I do them. That was one of the original reasons why I never really did hidden tangs before, because I could never get that fit up right. And truthfully, if I had like a mill or a milling machine, I mean, it would be a lot easier and I would get more consistent results. But for, you know, a few knives a month, I think the method I'm doing works fairly well. Also, in a previous video, I had a comment talking about how the CA glue doesn't really hold on well and it's not going to do well over time. But I've had no real issues with the CA glue method, and I've seen other makers do it, and those makers make some great knives and sell a lot more than I do. So if they think that going this method works, then I'll just go this method. It holds it primarily right now while I shape it up, and then once I fill it in with epoxy, it pretty much just solidifies on the inside and holds it on the inside as well as through the outside.
Alright guys, so we're out of the tempering. Our heat treat went well. You can see the pattern starting to pop in certain areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this guy in muriatic acid for a little while to help loosen up all the crud, and we're going to pass it through a very aggressive wire wheel. That way we can get all the scale off of it and get a nice clean knife. It'll still have all this texturing, but it'll be nice clean steel. So we're going to go on ahead and do that.
So what I'm using here is muriatic acid, and I pretty much leave it there a couple hours and then spray it out with some Windex, and that neutralizes the acid, and it helps get all the scale off, and it kind of just loosens it up. And as you can see, even the pattern starts popping out through it. And then I take a very aggressive wire wheel and I just kind of go ham on it, and it gives it a really nice, clean, shiny finish. And it really saves on the belts, because then your belts don't have to be grinding through that hard crud made from basically pure carbon, and it extends the life of your belts. So that's definitely the reason why I do it, and I like the overall look of it. So here I'm just gonna start doing my final grind, get my bevels in there. I'm not going all the way up to the top, I'm just bringing up pretty close because I want to show off as much of that pattern as possible, but I want to keep some of that forged look to it. And I don't want to grind into the bolster area either. I want it to stay rough. And some people like this method. Some people prefer a perfectly clean knife. I kind of like this kind of rough scaliness on it. And I think it kind of gives it that you can't argue that it was not hand forged look, if you know what I mean. So moving on, we're going to go on ahead and do our fitting of the tang. I'm going to bed the tang into it. And originally I started mixing, but then I remembered I got 5-minute epoxy I'm going to be using for this. And I had not waxed my tang, so I went on ahead with some Renaissance wax and I covered my tang up. And then I added my part B to the epoxy. That way I can fill in the crevice. I don't think I used enough epoxy. Honestly, I should have probably made some more, but since it was 5-minute, I wasn't sure. If I had made too much, it wouldn't really, it kind of spew out everywhere and get stuck to stuff. So I went the route of doing a little bit less, and then I pulled it out about 3-4 minutes later, and we have a pretty good cavity that's filled and set specifically to that tang shape that we can base our measurements from. So all those lines you see on the handle when I'm cutting it or grinding it, I do those off camera just because I don't see a point of just recording me drawing lines and doing math. But I go through everything, I line everything up, and I go through it with a ruler, and I basically just connect the dots and give it a tiny bit of a taper. Because of the bolster on this knife being a little bit bigger, I kind of went with my octagonal handle at the beginning, but then I realized that my normal measurements would leave the handle being a little bit too thick because of the way I do my measurements. So I kind of got it as close as I felt comfortable to the thickness of the bolster, and then I kind of just put it together, and the handle ended up being a little bit more blocky than my usual handle, but overall I think it ended up feeling good in the hand. It is a little bit less oval and more rectangle with curved in corners, but I think overall it is a pretty good handle fit. And one of the things I really love about it is it has really good balance. I was checking that as well because the bolster in the center adds some extra weight. The knife feels a little bit on the heavier side while also feeling extremely comfortable in the holding position. I don't know if what I said makes sense, but it made sense to me in my mind before I opened my mouth. So we're moving on to our sharpening. As always, I'm going to do a 220, and then I pretty much hit it with some diamond stones off camera. And I grind it up to 8,000 grit and strop it, and we get a nice sharp edge. Can't forget our maker's mark so everybody knows that we made it. I was considering using my stamp, but then I forgot, and so we're gonna just go on ahead and do it with our laser. And here's a final look at the knife. You can't really tell on camera. I try to get pretty close. It's a fairly dark knife. You can't really tell very well the 3 layers. But if you look at it in person up close, you can definitely tell apart the grays from the silvers and the blacks from the 1084. So you can definitely see it right there. It kind of blends in, but it also looks pretty cool in person. and I try to get a clean shot. This knife is available if you're interested in picking it up, and be sure to like the video. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.